James Hetfield's story is one of contrasts, a metal god on stage, a broken boy in private. He was born in 1963 in Downey, California, the oldest in a family of strict Christian Scientists. From childhood, he was forbidden from doctors or medicine. His parents believed in healing by faith alone. He remembers feeling alienated by the doctrine. As a boy, he felt very smothered by all of that rigid faith. He was not even allowed to participate in ordinary school health classes, and he never felt free to ask questions about the religion that suffocated him. Then tragedy struck. At age 13, 1976, his father abruptly left the family without saying goodbye. James later recalled even scribbling a note addressed to someone else. A few years later, in 1980, his 43-year-old mother, Cynthia, was diagnosed with cancer. The family's faith forbade treatment, and she died that February when James was only 16. In an instant, he had lost both parents, and the boys in the household were scattered to relatives. The teenager found himself adrift, trapped in a world that would not let him cry out or question, and the pain built up inside. In those dark years, music became his only outlet. James threw himself into his guitar. He had started piano lessons at 9, and by 14 was already learning riffs from his half-brother's drum beats and teaching himself guitar. He fell in love with hard rock bands like Aerosmith, writing his own songs to scream the rage he couldn't speak. In 1981, he answered a newspaper ad from a fellow guitar player, Lars Ulrich, and together they formed Metallica, a thrash metal band that could channel years of anger and confusion. In those early days on the LA scene, Metallica honed a furious sound. The band's first album, Kill 'Em All, 1983, and Second Ride the Lightning, 1984, were raw explosions of the suppressed emotion James carried inside. The lyrics would later reveal the demons that drove him. By the mid-1980s, Metallica was on the rise. After parting with an erratic lead guitarist in 1983, Kirk Hammett joined, and Metallica built steam with non-stop touring. Then, in 1986, on tour in Sweden, the unthinkable happened. Their bus skidded off the road, and James's friend and bassist Cliff Burton was killed in the crash. Cliff was only 24, a mentor and brother to James, and his death shattered the band. James has never forgotten that loss. "I miss Cliff a lot," he admitted years later. "I think about him quite often," adding poignantly that Cliff's spirit still lives with them. At the time, though, they simply kept playing, drinking themselves numb. In hindsight, James confessed they had buried their grief in excess. "We drank a lot, and then when Cliff passed away, it was doubled. We never, ever really grieved." Only later, in rehab, did he come to grips with the truth. The band carried on, reaching unprecedented fame by the early 1990s, with the Black Album and stadium tours, but beneath the success tensions simmered. By 2000 to 2001, James's wounds and addictions collided with internal conflicts. The Napster lawsuit and a contentious new album only strained loyalties. During the fraught 2002 recording of Saint Anger, arguments erupted. 6 weeks into the sessions, James and Lars Ulrich came to blows over how to move forward. On tape from the documentary Some Kind of Monster, James walks out of the studio in anger. A furious moment when he finally admitted he couldn't keep going as before. He abruptly checked himself into an alcohol rehab program in April 2001. The film captured him sipping a beer from his therapist and summarizing, "I had to choose. It was me or the drink." It was a turning point. In rehab, James began to untangle the roots of his pain. He realized that the fears of his childhood still ran him. He once reflected that his obsessive need to control the music and the band came straight from those early scars. A fear of abandonment, born when his parents were lost to him. As he learned to let go, the anger slowly changed form. By the time he returned to Metallica in 2002, he'd agreed to a new pact. He would work only a few hours a day in the studio so he could rebuild his family life. The band reluctantly adapted, and slowly they finished Saint Anger. The album's raw, jagged sound, even without guitar solos, gave voice to that angry period. Hetfield used it like catharsis. He has said he finally poured his childhood screams onto the record, then tried to let it go. One of the most surprising chapters of Hetfield's story has been his growing vulnerability. In recent years, he has done the unthinkable for a metal frontman. He's spoken openly about depression, about feeling lonely, about how the band's struggles mirror everyday issues. On stage in 2022, he even paused between songs to address the crowd. He told them they should not feel alone, dealing with anxiety or sadness. He empathized with fans who live with their own mental health battles, showing that even a rock star can be honest about being scared. Offstage, when talking about Metallica's new album 72 Seasons, 2023, Hetfield repeatedly used the word healing. He described the writing process as open heart surgery. "I was much more ready to open my heart to everyone in the band, lyrically, emotionally, and creatively," he said. And he literally encouraged his bandmates to contribute their riffs and ideas to the album. Gone was the old James and Lars isolation. He was letting in Kirk and Robert, and even the producer's ear. "Can we all show up? Can we all be in the studio together?" he asked, a sign that he trusts others now, instead of pushing them away. But reality reminded him that recovery is not a straight line. In late 2019, Hetfield hit another low and withdrew again. Metallica abruptly cancelled a planned Australia-New Zealand tour, announcing that James had been struggling with addiction on and off for many years and had had to re-enter a treatment program to work on his recovery again. Fans were shocked, but the band's message was clear. His health came first. True to the pledge he'd made in 2001, James went back to rehab. This time, it was 17 years sober, and fellow members rallied around him. As Lars Ulrich later explained, the band weathered the unknown, texting daily. By fall 2020, he reported that James is in a very healthy place. The band is in a very healthy place. In fact, the pandemic's pause was a strange blessing for Hetfield. With the world on hold, he got a second silver lining to work on himself. Today, James Hetfield seems to be in a new era of self-awareness. He talks about therapy openly, journals when he needs to process things, and even credits his wife for saving him the first time she threw him out, a moment he described as hitting the absolute bottom. Now, at 60 years old, he has returned to fronting Metallica with fresh insight. On 72 Seasons, he finally laid bare the trauma of his first 18 years, the childhood that once silenced him, and sang about the strength it took to survive it. When Hetfield's raspy voice shouts on the new songs, it's no longer just fury. It's the voice of a man who's learned to face his fears. In interviews, he sounds more open and hopeful than he's ever been. He readily talks about still feeling insecure, about how anger once controlled him, but he also emphasizes gratitude and support. Even on stage, when fear creeps in, he reminds himself of that balance of anxiety and faith. He often quotes his own mantra, "You show up for your life, and you figure out what to do with it." In the end, James Hetfield's life is a powerful story of survival. The thrashing riffs that built Metallica came out of desperation, a way to scream against silence. But the man inside gradually learned to turn the microphone on himself. From a strict, fearful childhood, to losing his mother and father so young, to burying pain in alcohol, Hetfield has emerged not with invincibility, but with vulnerability. Today, he is free enough to admit his scars, to the world and to himself. And in those honest admissions, fans see that even a warrior can heal. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications on to never miss a video.